Harley Davidson has been having a demo week lately, so I took a trip out to my local Harley dealership and rode the Pan America. If you know anything about me, you know that I like to get on motorcycles that I don't have to pay for. I was only on the Harley Davidson Pan America for about 10 to 15 miles, so I wasn't able to give it a full in-depth review like I would like to, but I'm still gonna give it a score and let you know what I think about it.
Hey up, hey up, hey up.
The first thing I feel when I sit on this bike is that it's much lower than my Ibex. The sales rep here mentioned that the Pan America lowers automatically when it's stopped and raises when you start moving. I guess to make it easier for people to flat-foot it or to get on. I don't know, I'm not sure. Wait, I hear a rattling noise. Is that the exhaust? Yeah, there's something in the top case moving around. No worries. All right, let's get going. I think because my clutch is set to release really short, every time I hop on a Harley, it takes me like 10 minutes to figure out the friction zone. It does shift really smoothly though, and unlike other Harley Davidson models, the Pan America has turn signals that are all on the same side, which I actually prefer over having right on the right side and left on the left side. It feels really nimble, but I can't put my finger on what feels so odd about this. It feels like I'm almost riding a cruiser still? I don't know, maybe it's the wheels. It doesn't feel bad, but I'm just a little confused. It feels like I'm still sitting on a regular Harley. And I think I'm kind of getting used to the way that it handles. I'm not getting a lot of turns on this route, but I feel more confident right now. And I believe you can just pull this lever right here to adjust the windscreen. Yeah, it's got a little release button right here. I'll pull it down a bit. Oh no, I do not like that. The highest point was much better for me. Wait, how fast does this thing lower? Because I can completely flat-foot this the moment that I stop. All right, just gonna park it right here and then do a side-by-side with my CF Moto Ibex 800.
You know, I was thinking that the Harley kind of felt like a cruiser, even though it's an adventure bike, and I think the reason is the tires. So I'm comparing these two bikes side by side, and the Pan America has wider tires than my CF Moto does and smaller tires, so they're not as tall. The Pan America raises and lowers, so it lowers when it's stopped and it raises when you start riding. So I'm not sure exactly like the clearance difference between these two, but just sitting still, my bike is a lot higher, which is why I can barely flat foot it, and on that one I was flat footing it no problem. It also looks like the distance between the pegs and the seat on my bike is much more than the Pan America. I felt it in my knees also. I mean, I know it raises as it rides, but I can't imagine that it would get to the same height as my bike. It looks a pretty big difference. The rear tire on here is so small. What size is it? 170 60 R17. Yeah, so pretty wide and pretty small in my opinion. I feel like KLR 650s and other adventure bikes have a larger rear tire as far as like height wise, and a thinner and larger front tire. Maybe that's why that kind of still felt like a Harley to me. I didn't mind it, it wasn't bad, but it did not feel the same as other adventure bikes I've been on. So it does appear that the Pan America has different size tires than other adventure bikes that I've ridden, which might be the reason that it feels more like a cruiser to me than it does an adventure bike. Even though ergonomically it's an adventure bike, the wheels just felt, I don't know, it felt a little bit weird when I was trying to kind of swerve around and turn. The front tire is the exact same size as the Triumph Tiger 1200, which I've ridden before and really enjoyed, but the rear tire is wider and shorter. The KLR 650 has thinner and taller tires, as does the Africa Twin and my CF Moto Ibex 800S. I feel like that's kind of a staple in adventure bikes, that you find thinner tires that are taller, and that's kind of what gives it the ability to move around a lot of objects, especially when you're going off-road. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but it's something that I definitely noticed the moment I started riding. It felt kind of like a cruiser, even though it's an adventure bike. Now, I personally don't off-road very much, so I'm not the person to ask as to whether or not a fatter, shorter tire is better off-roading. I'm inclined to believe it's actually not as good, but maybe somebody that knows a lot more than I can answer this in the comments. Is the Pan America's thicker and shorter tires better than the KLR 650 having thinner and taller tires specifically for off-roading? I really like the windscreen and how you could adjust it, no wind buffeting whatsoever. Obviously I didn't try out any heated grips because it's not hot out, and also, yeah, this one does have it, I just didn't use it. I mean, it felt good, not bad at all, but for me personally, the price for this is kind of hard to beat. That's got extra features that I would like, but it's stuff that I probably wouldn't use, and I prefer the feeling of this bike as far as the ergonomics of my body more than the Pan America. Still a fun bike though, really like it. Would definitely take one for free, so Harley, if you're interested, I'd ride one for sure. I was only able to ride for a little bit, so it wasn't enough to get a real good look on how well it could handle with everything. Also, it's a test ride, so I'm not going to be cornering and going off-road, but I would really like to someday.
Overall, I really like the Pan America. I think it's a great bike, but what do I rate it out of 10 for price, features, comfort, style, and I think overall? Let's get into it. The price of the Pan America runs about $20,000 and it can go up to about $30,000 depending on what features and which model that you get. I think that's pretty comparable to other 1200cc adventure bikes in this kind of category. The KTM 1290 Super Sport, Triumph Tiger 1200, and the BMW, the BMW adventure bike I can't think of. Those are all pretty much the same exact price. So for price, I give this 8 out of 10, but I would like to point out that that's just specifically for 1200cc or almost 1200cc adventure bikes, because the Africa Twin being 1100cc is a lot less expensive, but it's not exactly the same size. So I didn't include that when I was considering price. For speed on this bike, I give it a 7.5 out of 10. The Pan America gets something like 150 horsepower, but it didn't feel like it punched too hard to me. I was expecting quite a bit more based on the numbers that I was seeing. 1200cc V-twin that's got 150 horsepower, but it didn't feel as punchy as I expected. That being said though, I wasn't on a track and I wasn't able to take this off-roading, so this rating might not be that great. I wasn't able to punch it as much as I would want to. I wanted to see it get into triple digits and really see what it could do, but unfortunately it's a demo bike and it wasn't mine, so I wasn't able to do that. For comfort, I gave this 8.5 out of 10. I was actually very surprised with how comfortable I was in this bike compared to my bike. I still feel more comfortable on mine, but that's probably just because it's mine, so it's got my butt indent on the seat already. The distance between the pegs and the seat felt pretty comfortable. I did like the fact that it lowers and I could put my feet flat on the ground very easily. On my Ibex 800, I can kind of flat-foot it depending on my shoes, but really one footing is the way I'm gonna have to go on that bike. I really like the windscreen on the Pan America. It allowed some airflow to come through, but no wind buffeting because of the cutout, I think, on there. I think that was relieving the negative pressure that would have caused wind to tumble. And the fact that you can adjust it with one hand is really nice. For features, I give this 7 out of 10. This probably is because I wasn't able to really run through absolutely everything that I wanted to, but I wasn't overly impressed with all the features that were on this, but there's probably some features on this bike that are included that you just don't have access to, like riding assist and the lowering of the suspension. I've got to check out and see exactly how far that goes though, because I'm not sure if it's a couple inches or like really significant. Just did a quick Google and it looks like the Pan America's adaptive ride height adjustment goes down about 1 inch when you stop. So it's actually not as significant as I thought. So dimensionally speaking, the Pan America is smaller than my bike as far as height goes. For style, I give the Pan America a 7 out of 10. This is a really good looking bike. I do enjoy the orange, but I kind of prefer the black version over the orange. But I wouldn't be mad to ride orange, especially if somebody gave it to me for free. It does not look like a Harley, which might be a good thing, might be a bad thing to other people. It looks like an actual adventure bike, which I am honestly really surprised by. I've seen a handful of people riding these around, and before I realized that Harley made an adventure bike, I was like, oh, is that a KTM? What is that? I'm not sure what it is. Actually, when did they even come out with the Pan America? Maybe I wasn't noticing it for a while and it's actually been out for a while. Looks like it was introduced in 2018 for the 2020 model. So wait, was it released in 2018 or 2020? I don't know. Either way, it's only been out for a few years and I really wasn't paying attention until recently. And now I think they're actually pretty cool bikes. Here is the overall score. 7.6 out of 10. This is not a bad score. This means that I like the bike more than I dislike the bike, but I think that score would fluctuate a lot if I was able to get on a Pan America and go off-roading on a trail for a bit and take it for longer distances. When you do demo rides, you basically just ride around in a circle going the speed limit, and it's really hard to put a bike through its paces. You really get an idea for how it handles a little bit, how it feels when you sit on it, and that's kind of about it. Now, I've mentioned a couple times that I would like to have this bike for free, like I don't really want to buy it, and I still stand by that after riding it. There are other adventure bikes that I would pick over the Pan America simply based on the price. I ride a CF Moto, which is half of the price of the Pan America. That being said, it's only an 800cc instead of a 1200cc, and on top of that, Harley Davidson has that giant network of people that can help you out if you get broke down in Nevada or New Hampshire. They've got dealerships everywhere. CF Moto is not the same way. So there is a trade-off when you go with different adventure bikes, especially if you're going to go off-roading, off the beaten path, kind of in the middle of nowhere. I'm not sure that there's a state where a Harley Davidson dealership does not exist.
Let me look it up really quick. Yeah, there's 650 Harley Davidson dealerships in the United States, which means you have this giant network of people that can work on your bike and help you get back on the road and back on your adventure if something goes wrong. And that, in my opinion, is the reason that Harley stands apart from other dealerships, even though they do have higher prices for some of their bikes. So while I personally would not buy one and would prefer to work on my own motorcycles and have cheaper ones, I really do like the Pan America, and I would not mind riding one. I just don't think I'd buy one for a brand new price. Thank you so much for watching, and if you like motorcycle review videos like this, I have more extensive reviews on Triumphs, Harley Davidson Road Glide, and a bunch of Indian motorcycles, so be sure to check those out. Other than that, thank you so much, bye. Like, share, subscribe, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, whatever. Thank you, bye.